Hello, friends. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Elliot, and whether you are a writer, a reader, or a lover of words, I invite you to stop what you're doing and join me for a page break. I'm so glad to have you back on for another episode and to be back with you for another episode. And this is really an interesting time of year because July is an interesting month for publishing because typically the publishing industry kind of slows down a little bit during this period as they're kind of getting away from their late spring, early summer releases, and they're getting ready for their August, September, and October releases heading into the holiday season. But this July has been anything but normal. The great work that has been coming out across genres, all over, everywhere, has just been outstanding. And I can't wait to talk to you about some of those here in just a minute. And I don't know about you, but I live in Oxford, Mississippi, and it has just been oppressively hot here since really about Memorial Day. We've had just day after day, week after week of 100 degrees plus in temperature and heat index, and it's just been miserable. But it's been a great opportunity for me to catch up on some reading. And so I thought what I would do today with this episode, when these book reviews, is put myself up to a little bit of a challenge. I am going to see if I can do 10 book reviews in 10 minutes or less. 10 books that I've read during the month of July that I've loved, that I think you will love as well, and I can't wait to talk to you about. But I want to see if I can get this done in 10 minutes or less. So I have my stopwatch here, and in just a minute, I'm going to start and see if I can get through these in 10 minutes or less. So wish me luck. Can't wait to share these books with you. I've got a wide variety of genres to talk about. We've got some fiction, some nonfiction, a children's story. Really looking forward to sharing these with you. So I'm going to go ahead and start my watch. Here we go. Let's see if I can do this in 10 minutes or less. Well, the first book I wanted to share with you is a book that Grant Gender, who was an author I featured on a previous episode, recommended. It is called Marrying the Ketchups by Jennifer Close. This is the fourth book that Jennifer Close has written. It is set in Chicago, Illinois. It follows a family called the Sullivan family who owns a restaurant in Chicago. And this is just a story about their lives and their family and all of the dynamics that impact their family, both running the restaurant and all the carryover effects that happen outside of the restaurant, because they work together, they see each other, they're all involved with one another through the restaurant and because of the restaurant, but also those relationships that are established there spill out into other areas of their lives. This was just a wonderful book. I mean, it talks about, it's got modern romance, it kind of skewers the indignities of modern romance, the absurdities of family life. It even talks about the sort of the tribalism that is inherent in Midwest culture and with families that live in the Midwest. I absolutely loved this book. There were moments that just made me grin from ear to ear. There were moments that I just laughed out loud because of some of the antics. This book has just got about anything that you would want for it. I wanted to be a Sullivan, a member of the Sullivan family by the time I finished this book. It is just terrific. There's just some great writing, just some tap perfect sentences in terms of dialogue and just how you would expect people to react. So I loved this book, Marrying the Ketchups, Jennifer Close, her fourth book. Make sure you add that to your to be read pile. The next book I'm going to talk about is a nonfiction book. And this is a book that I'm going to put my stopwatch back here. The next book that I want to talk about is a nonfiction book. And this is by Eric Barker. It is called Plays Well with Others. And it is the surprising science behind why everything you know about relationships is mostly wrong. And I really appreciated this book and enjoyed this book for a variety of reasons. If you've been in relationships or you've been involved in a lot of relationships in your life, both romantic and collegial and familial, there's some information in here that you're going to be kind of like, oh, well, I've heard this multiple times. But one of the things I like about what Eric Barker talks about is how and why it is so important for us to be able to interact, relate, and have empathy for other people. And more importantly, what happens to us when we don't do those things, and what happens to us not only personally, but how we interact with others and how other people view us when we're not displaying those characteristics. I just thought it was a timely read, given the fact that as the pandemic is waning and a lot of us are going back into the office, we've been working from home or we've been having these modified work schedules. Now, all of a sudden, we're back in the office again with one another, and we're having to learn those office dynamics, and we're having to learn, how to get along with people where we're interacting with clients and customers and constituents. Now, how do we do that? How do we do it so very well? And one of the things I like about it, a lot of his writing and methods are unconventional. This is not a scientific textbook. This is not like you're reading some psychologist's dissertation from graduate school. I just think it's timely. It's a page-turning book. It's a short book. You can get through it in a weekend. I read it in a weekend. It really, really grabs your attention from the first page and really talks about why we need to be able to play well with others, relate well to others, what happens to us when we don't, and what happens to how other people interact and perceive us. And so it talks about building better friendships, regaining love, regaining romantic love, and the love that you have for other people, and just how we connect to each other in our everyday lives. So Plays Well with Others by Eric Barker. Really, really great book that I think everybody should read. The next book I want to feature is a book that has been published by Orison Books, Orison. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They are a terrific literary press, and I'm going to talk more about them on an upcoming episode of the channel. Luke Hankins is the publisher that runs this, and they just crank out so many great, great collections of stories and collections of poems. And this is one of their latest releases. It is by Carol Dines. It's a collection of short stories, and it's called This Distance We Call Love. And one of the things that I'll just tell you about this book, and I'll just read kind of the blurb off the back of it for you. It is a novelistic set of short stories that ring devastatingly true, and they're portrayals of characters who are learning to reckon with persisting losses, fears, griefs, and needs. So it has very much an everyman quality, something we can all identify with. There's just a visceral immediacy about this book that caught my attention. It's so surprising. Every story has a twist and goes in a direction that you don't think it's going to go. Sometimes just when you think you've got it figured out, or just when you think you know where she's going with each individual story, it takes a twist and it has a resolution that once you think about it and once you realize what you've read, you're like, oh, I can see why the story ended up that way. But it is terrific. It is a terrific collection of stories. There's stories in here about families that are in crisis, that families that are making adjustments, people that are tired of who they are and what's going on in their lives, and they're looking for escapes and ways to get out of it. But visceral immediacy is probably the phrase that comes to mind when I think about this book. I mean, there's just a lot of powerful stories, and I really think irony and empathy collide in a lot of these stories. So if you're familiar with those trademarks in literature of empathy and irony, they all come together in each one of these stories. Orison Books, check them out online if you've never read anything from them. They really publish some outstanding work, and this latest collection of short stories is an example of that. I'm doing pretty well on my time according to my stopwatch, so let's keep it going here. 10 book reviews in under 10 minutes. This is the next book that I wanted to feature. It's a collection of short stories by Jess Walter, and this book is called The Angel of Rome and Other Stories. This is a wonderful collection of books that I sort of picked up happenstance. I wasn't really looking to buy anything when I was at Square Books in Oxford, Mississippi, my local independent bookstore, but I came across it and I picked it up. It looked intriguing. One of the things that caught my attention was this beautiful cover, the kind of the pink and the black with this seductive woman sort of looking in the mirror and reflecting on herself. I'll just read you basically what this is about. And this is what the author writes about the collection. She says, every one of us lives like we're famous now, curating our social media presences, performing our identities, withholding those parts of ourselves we don't want others to see. And in each of these unforgettable stories, characters are confronted with their roles in life and find inspiration in the unlikeliest of places. And so these are people that occupy certain spaces in life, that they're wealthy, they're powerful, they're well connected, they own things, they run things, they have big families and all these kinds of things. But they're all kind of looking for a way to kind of move on from that, and how all of the ways that they connect and interact with other people in their lives kind of dovetail in on their learned experiences. Now, Jess Walter, if you're not familiar with her, she's a National Book Award winner. She has written a lot of different types of writing over her career. Jess also spent some time, he's also the author of 10 other books. His other novels are The Cold Millions and Beautiful Ruins. This is a second short story collection that he has written. His other collection is called We Live in Water. He's also won the Edgar Award and a variety of other different awards for his work. So I would highly recommend that you check out Jess Walter's new collection of books. It's called The Angel of Rome and Other Stories. Really, really liked it. Some good stories, a lot of variety there, and something that I think you'll like if you're looking for short stories. This next book is one that I didn't really connect with for a variety of different reasons. This book is a thriller. It is called The Sweet Goodbye. It's by an author named Ron Corbett, who I'm not familiar with. This is the first book of his I have read. And you can see here at the bottom, he has created a new character, excuse me, called Danny Barrett. And he's starting a new thriller series with a character named Danny Barrett. And this book is about Danny Barrett, who is working for the FBI. And this is a situation in which he is investigating the improprieties going on in the Maine wilderness of a small family-run lumber company that has some improprieties with money. They've got a lot of money that's being laundered and being wired from their accounts and to their accounts. You find out later on that the money is being done for a certain reason, and it's not a good reason. It's a nefarious reason. And one of the reasons that Danny Barrett gets involved in this case for the government is the first FBI agent they sent out to the Maine wilderness to investigate this small family-run lumber company in the Maine wilderness. The first FBI agent they sent, who was supposedly the top FBI agent, their best FBI agent, was murdered. And they never found out who did it or what happened to him. And so Danny Barrett's been brought in to find out what happened to him and what's going on with this family that runs this lumber company. The premise was good. The book starts off really good. There is a huge murder scene that's really interesting at the beginning of the book, but then the book just kind of plods along. There's a lot of discussions between Danny and his supervisor, who gets replaced, and another supervisor is brought in. There's a lot of time that Danny spends kind of in his own thoughts as he's in the Maine wilderness trying to track the clues that this lumber company has left behind. It just kind of plods along. It just doesn't really have the breakneck pacing that it starts out with. And I found myself many times thinking, I wish we could just kind of get on to it. Let's get on to the next thing here. It had a lot of elements of a cozy mystery. If you've read cozy mysteries before, it had some of that, a lot of discussion, a lot of dialogue, a lot of talking about the case, a lot of what are we going to do? Who are we going to talk to? What happens if they won't cooperate? All of that kind of stuff. You expect that in a thriller and in a police procedural, but this book just dragged. It just dragged for me. I finished it. I got to the end, but it was a book that I just could not connect with. And so I'm not so sure that I'm going to read any more of the Danny Barrett thriller series, although Ron Corbett is a great writer, and I certainly would like to see him do some other things and read some more of his work. This next book, I read this during Pride Month in June. It is called Bathhouse by P.J. Vernon. This is a thriller unlike any thriller that I have ever read. It involves a couple that is in total turmoil for a variety of different reasons. The story opens up. We follow a character named Oliver Park, who is a recovering drug addict who is in a relationship with another man named Nathan Klein, who is this rich surgeon, neurosurgeon, I believe he is, in Washington, D.C. And he and Oliver are in this relationship that on the surface you think, what is a successful guy like Nathan doing with sort of a drifter kind of person like Oliver Park? Well, Nathan's out of town on business at the beginning of the story. Oliver goes to a bathhouse, which is where the name comes from, for a little bit of a tryst, a little bit of a one-night stand or a one-evening stand. And during the encounter with the other man that he's meeting in the bathhouse, he's nearly killed. He's nearly murdered. And so the story just kind of unfolds from there. And Oliver certainly does not want to tell Nathan or have Nathan find out what happened because it would ruin everything. He knows Nathan would leave him and he would be back to where he was. Oliver's one of these characters that comes from nothing. He has no family. He has no money. He's been in and out of recovery for drug abuse. He's got a variety of different problems. But Nathan is attracted to him because he is so different and because he's beautiful. I mean, PJ does a great job of explaining just how beautiful Oliver is. And so there's an ethereal beauty that Nathan is attracted to. But what goes on in this story is unbelievable. I mean, there is the meddling mother on Nathan's side of the family. There is Oliver trying to layer secret upon secret and lie upon lie in order to keep what happened to him involved. What happened to him, who he was involved in, away from Nathan. There are moments where the attacker who attacked Oliver comes back and tries to finish the job, and Oliver's got to deal with that. But ultimately, it's about Nathan and Oliver's relationship, and it's also about this idea of, can we save someone from themselves? Can you love someone enough? Can you give someone enough? Can you do enough for someone to make them kind of change who they are? That's the central question that P.J. Vernon deals with in that book. Loved it. Haven't read a thriller quite like that in a long, long time. And I mean, I just could not put it down. I just loved it. They're short chapters, rich writing, but quick moving. You'll peel right through that book very easily. The next book I'm going to feature is one that I'm a little late to the party to. This is by John Krakauer. It is called Under the Banner of Heaven. Some of you might be familiar with this if you've watched the, I think it's a Showtime or a Netflix series starring Andrew Garfield. I have a lot of friends and family who are watching that show, and they've told me I need to watch it. So I'm going to, but before I do that, and the first thing I wanted to do is actually read the book and find out kind of the background of the story. Because as we know, as readers and as writers, the book is always so much better than the TV show or the movie. But if you're not familiar with this story, this is based on a true story that occurred on July 24th, 1984, where a woman and her infant daughter were murdered by two brothers who believed they were ordered to kill by God. And the roots of the crime lie deep in a history of American religion practiced by millions, which is Mormonism. And so you learn a lot in this book, not only about the brothers and the woman that was involved and how and why they felt like they were prophesied by God to kill them, but you also find out about Mormonism and what was going on with the Mormon church and the Mormon faith during this period in American history and this period in the church's history, and why those brothers were so easily persuaded to do what they did based on their faith. And so it's not an indictment against Mormonism, but it does give an honest portrayal, both sides, of what Mormonism is and what it means to believers of the faith and to the community in which this story takes place. And as I mentioned, it's been made into a limited series by Andrew Garfield, who's an actor I love, absolutely love him. He's been nominated for a couple of awards for his role as the police detective in the story. But John Krakauer brings all of this to the surface, brings all of this to light with the attention of a journalist's eye, but it is not written like a newspaper article. This reads like fiction. And there were moments when I was reading it, I had to kind of blink and realize, oh yeah, this really happened. This is not a made up story. So I'm a little late to Under the Banner of Heaven, but I absolutely loved it. And I'm really looking forward to watching the TV series. Next book I want to mention is a book that really caught my attention that I didn't think I was going to like, but I really loved. It's called City of Likes. This is by Jenny Mollen. If you're familiar with the Devil Wears Prada movie with Meryl Streep from a few years ago and Anne Hathaway, this book kind of has that vibe. It is set involving a character named Megan Chernoff, who is a talented but unemployed copywriter in an identity crisis. The birth of her second child has taken place. She doesn't know what to do. She doesn't really want to be a mother. And so she takes off. She moves her family, goes to New York City to try to start a new life. Again, kind of the Devil Wears Prada situation. And there she meets another character named Daphne Cole, who is this kind of gorgeous, stylish, cosmopolitan kind of woman. She's a momfluencer, which you'll learn more about what that term means. She has a lot of connections on social media, and she does a lot of virtual things where she tries to help mothers and influence mothers, not only on their shopping practices, but what do they do when they're in a situation like Megan is in, when they're having this identity crisis? Like, oh my God, I don't want to be a mom anymore. I don't want my life anymore. It was really great. It was compulsively entertaining, really from the very first page. It was almost a little bit of a satire. There were some satirical moments in there that really caught my attention. But there's a seductive allure that kind of permeates. There's a mood of a seductive allure that permeates a lot of the pages here. But it's a story about female relationships, about motherhood, about things that happened and things that didn't happen and things we wish would happen in our lives. So I really liked it. City of Likes by Jenny Mollen. And if you're familiar with that name, her boyfriend, and maybe husband now, but her boyfriend is Jason Biggs, who was in the American Pie movies. He played the role of Jim in the American Pie movies. I may be dating myself here by saying that, but if you've watched any of the American Pie movies, you remember Jim's character, the character that plays him, Jason Biggs. This is his girlfriend / wife, and this is her debut collection called City of Likes. It's a quick read. It's only 230 some pages long. Really, really good. And again, if you like The Devil Wears Prada and you're familiar with that story, you'll really like this one. Another book that I really, really loved is called The Catch. And this is a debut novel by a writer named Allison Fairbrother. And Allison Fairbrother has a lot of experience in publishing. She was the associate editor at one time at Riverhead Books. She's worked as a journalist in Washington, D.C. She got her MFA at Stony Brook University. She lives in Brooklyn, New York. But this book is really, really good. It's brilliantly funny. It is a story about a father who has had 3 wives and multiple children by all 3 of these wives. and his oldest daughter goes to see him, and his oldest daughter that he is close with, her name is Ellie Adler. She's 2 years out of college. She's kind of going through that awkward phase that we all kind of go through in our early 20s. She's dating an older man who is married, and she loves him, but he won't leave his wife. But the main story is about Ellie and her father. And her father passes away unexpectedly from a heart attack. And he doesn't have a lot of money. He doesn't have a lot of things to give his children. So he gives each one of them an artifact. And he and Ellie were big baseball fans, and they would play catch a lot when she was growing up. And so there was this rare baseball that sat in his office in his house. Ellie thinks that she's going to get that when the will is read and all of the artifacts are passed out. She doesn't get the baseball. And in fact, there's a person named LM, who is ultimately the one who is going to get the baseball. So Ellie goes on this quest for who is this LM person, because she never heard her father talk about him. Nobody in the family knows who this person is, and nobody knows in the family knows why somebody outside the family, especially Ellie, would not get the baseball that her dad cherished and loved so much. So she goes on this journey to find out more about her father. She's well aware and not really happy the fact that he had all these wives and had all these children with different women, but she loves him. She respected him. And the journey that she finds in terms of trying to find out why this baseball was given to this LM character ultimately kind of unravels her perceptions of her father. And you learn a lot about him, and you learn a lot about why he did and said and acted the way he did with Ellie and the other children who were by different women in the story. This is really, really a great story. It's wonderful. It's wholly absorbing. It's a family drama, but it's got this mystery at its core. But the central question I like about this book that it answers is, what are we owed by the people that we love? What should we expect from our family? What should our family members expect from us, if anything? Do we owe them anything? Do we owe our parents anything? Do we owe our siblings anything? Do they owe us anything as we go through the various stages in life? A really great book, debut book by Allison Fairbrother. Absolutely loved it. It's called The Catch, and I think you will too. Lastly, I want to finish up with a children's book, and this is a cute book called Hop and Trot. And it is by an author named Diana Pishner Walker. She is an Italian, a native Italian, and she is a children's writer who has written 5 award-winning children's books. This book recently was published by Headline Books. I absolutely love this story for a variety of different reasons. This is kind of the tortoise and the hare story with a little bit of Italian flair. There are 2 characters here, Mr. Tartaruga, which is Italian for turtle, and Mr. O'Hara, which is better known as the bunny in this story. They've both aged considerably from their earlier days as the tortoise and the hare. If you remember that story, they were young and vibrant. Well, now they've gotten a little bit of age on them, as we all have as life goes on. But this time they decide to race each other again. They're going to pull themselves up. They're going to have the race that they had when they were younger. All over again, but this time they're going to race on the beautiful coastal shores of Italy, not in some random farm or some random location. They're going to race on the beautiful shores of Italy, and you got to find out as this story unfolds who's going to win this time. Will it be the tortoise? Will it be the hare? Will the same things that help the tortoise help him this time, and will the same things that help Mr. O'Hare help him this time or not, and why? One of the things I loved about this book, it was so cute, it was so well written, it had such a good message and such a good theme, and it takes a traditional story that a lot of kids are familiar with and that we're familiar with as adults and puts a new twist on it. And Diana Walker is just a wonderful children's writer. If you've never read any of her stuff, I would highly recommend that you check her out. You can find her on Amazon at the Headline Books website. She's just terrific. And one of the things I loved also about this book is the illustrations on the inside. I'll see if I can just show you one here. These are pencil drawn illustrations. You can see there is the turtle on the left. There is Mr. O'Hare on the right. And this is when they're having a conversation deciding, are we going to do this again? Are we really going to race again? And why? And what are we doing this for? And who's going to win? And all of that. But it's a great story about perseverance, a great story about friendship. And one of the things I like about Diana and doing a little research on her is that she's very active in promoting literacy with children and getting children reading. And she also is someone who will come to your classroom, will come to your small group, will visit your classroom on Zoom. So if you're a teacher out there teaching young children, preschool age kids, kindergarten kids, add this book to your collection. Your kids are going to love it. Even if they don't know the story of the tortoise and the hare, they're going to love this story. A great book, new release by Diana Walker called Hop and Trot. Absolutely loved it. I have a couple of young cousins that live outside of Nashville, Tennessee, in Murfreesboro, and little do they know, a copy of this, or several copies of this, are coming their way. Okay, so how did I do? Did I get 10 book reviews in under 10 minutes? I did not. I was slightly over by about 4.5 minutes. So that means a couple of good things, I guess. That means I had a lot to say about these 10 books, but also I had some really great books to share, and I think the extra 3.5 or 4 minutes of conversation were well worth it to give you a profile of some of the things that I've been reading. So add those books to your to-be-read pile. If you like mysteries, if you like romance, you like family drama, you like short stories, you like children's books, we've got it all in this collection of 10 of my favorite books that I've read in July. There's more that I've read other than these 10, but only having a certain amount of time for the challenge today to do 10 under 10 minutes. Failed miserably, but that's okay. It was a lot of fun to see if I could get it done. So I'll have to come up with some other kind of challenge for next time. So a reminder, if you like what you've seen on the channel, follow me on my social media. Buttons are over here off to the right. Please take a moment and like the channel if you're a new viewer of the channel, and also leave some comments and feedback. Are you reading anything good? Anything that you've taken with you on vacation this summer that just caught your attention? Anything that you've read that you thought you were going to like but didn't like, or anything that you've read and thought, I'll give this a try, and it ended up being something that you really, really loved? Drop those comments and feedback in the comments blanks below, and let's have a discussion. So thanks so much for stopping by the channel. Stay well, and see you someplace soon, I hope.